Welcome everyone to our Conscious Movie of the Month discussion on Interstellar. I am Tarina Wyatt, founder and CEO of Conscious Good, and I'm here with our colleague, Mark Allen Kaplan of Integral Cinema Project. We welcome you to our conversation today. So we're going to start today with a perception practice specifically for Interstellar, and Mark, who's training me in this practice, is going to say a few words about what a perception practice is.
Great, thank you, Trina. All right, well, a perception practice is slightly different than your traditional meditation practice. It can be done with eyes open or closed, depending on what is best for you to picture things inside your mind. And it is oriented not towards states of consciousness, but towards stages of development or stages of consciousness. It works with our perceptual field, brings our awareness to our perceptual field itself, which helps us to evolve through stages of development. So, and that is, there's a difference between what we call waking up and growing up. Waking up is what meditation and yoga work on, and that is having us wake up to higher states of consciousness. The states of consciousness are temporary states, but we could touch very high states, but they are still temporary. And growing up is like our structure of consciousness itself. It is how we perceive the world. And that evolves more slowly, but we can work on that. And so these practices help us to work on that. So, and this practice is based on the film Interstellar. So it uses it. It's good to play with it prior to watching it or after watching it. So Trina, take us away to the practice. Unmute yourself, right? You have to unmute yourself.
I hate background noise. Muted by host. Now I'm unmuted by host. Okay. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, so this is the Gravity of Love Interstellar Perception Practice. So everyone, if you get into a comfortable position with your eyes opened or closed, whatever feels most comfortable for you. Now bring to mind a dear loved one, either living or deceased, be they a friend, a spouse, a sibling, a parent, or a child. Try to feel the love that you feel for them. Feel what that love feels like in your emotional being, now in your energetic being, and in your physical being. Holding that love in all these dimensions of beingness. Imagine that this loved one needs your help, and feel what it feels like in the field of this love you have for them. Feel how far you would go to help them, to protect them, to save them. Now imagine that you and your loved one and all your loved ones and all sentient beings are one. And see if you can feel your loved one expand to embrace all beings as your loved one. Now imagine all beings need your help. Feel how far you would go to help them, to protect them, to save us, to save our collective self. Now, if you can, feel the power in that love, the passion, the drive, the energy, and the gravity of love itself. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Thank you for participating in that. Now we'll begin our discussion. Mark, will you start us off?
Sure. Well, welcome everybody. Just wanted to say a few words before we open it up to the floor. So the gravity of love. One of the things that I think is the most powerful thing about this film is how it captures and uses love as a force. They talk about it, but it's also, I think, very prescient for this moment for us as well. Because it's not, they basically take this idea of a parent's love for his children, and the world's about to end, and how do you save his children? He's got to save everyone. And so the sacrifice that he's willing to do, and that driving force, is something I think we all understand. I mean, we all have heard stories about a parent whose child's in crisis and they could do amazing things, lifting up a car, all sorts of, it's, and the notion that love is a force, like a subtle energy force, in a way makes perfect sense. I mean, when we feel it, like when we're with somebody who we really love, it transforms everything. And it changes our consciousness, how we perceive ourselves in the world. Romantic love could, make the whole world seem amazing, And one of the things I think that's important for us is also to understand its connection with now in terms of the calling of this moment. We have kids around the world striking for climate change because they feel like us, the parents, the older people, are not waking up, are not realizing what's going on, and they don't feel like their future is there. And if there's a lot of parents who are waking up because of their children, and Greta Thunberg's parents talked about this in an interview that they did, that their child, that's like when they kind of got that their child's future was at stake, everything shifted for them. But they didn't get it, they were, but that power of love that's awakened when we get it, when we get that, the situation we're in, this pandemic, according to a lot of theorists, is just the beginning of waves of challenges we're going to be facing because of a basic civilization-wide evolutionary turning point. And the sooner we wake up to the challenge of this moment, and I think the key is love, is this, what this is talking about, is you cannot surmount great challenges without the force of love. And that's what this film, I think, is teaching us in this moment, is how do we, muster that love? How do we gather that love? One of the first ways is to go, if you're a parent, to look at your child and just try to imagine what they see in their world right now. What is, and then take that expanded outward. And that's what this practice was trying to capture as well, which I think is kind of the heart of the film itself. Is, it's like the future beings of humanity are calling back to us through this one man, using the force of his love, because they recognize that that's the only thing that will drive somebody beyond their perceptual limits. And to make a big transition, you have to move past your constructs, as Einstein said, you know, where you can't solve a problem by the consciousness that created it. But how do you get out of the consciousness you're in? How do you get outside of the structure of consciousness you're in? And I think this film kind of really speaks to that. And that's a profound lesson for us now, because that's the edge that we're playing with.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's so beautiful, Mark. I wanted to, just something occurred to me as you were speaking about the film. So there's that beautiful scene where the Anne Hathaway character, Dr. Can't remember her name, but the Anne Hathaway character, and they're deciding which planet to go to next. And she talks about love, and she's saying, love isn't something we invented. Love is evidence or an artifact of a higher dimension. And then, you know, Matthew McConaughey's character Cooper had said, we're not going to Edmund's planet, you know, and she was saying, we've been using our intellect, maybe now it's time to use our hearts. And he used his rational mind and said, no, we're going to go to this other planet. Well, then at the end of the film, you see that Edmund's planet was habitable, right? So it was like, she got it. He didn't get it until later.
Yeah.
So that was something I just got as I was listening to you earlier. So that was so beautiful. Beautiful.
So anyone else want to chime in here?
I love how the film really, as you said, it had a love for the people who we're close to, which is understandable, but it's harder to extend that love to all of humanity. And that was the constant, you know, conflict, sort of the pull of personal love versus, you know, love for the species and for something greater. And I love that this line, empathy rarely extends beyond our line of sight, you know, and to get beyond that was so beautifully portrayed in this film.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan.
Oh.
I was just adjusting my light, actually.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were raising your hand to see.
I'll say.
No, my light is right there. It's like.
Hi, Lynn. Yes.
Hi. Hello, everyone. This was such a great opportunity to watch that movie again, because I saw it when it first came out, and I think I must have been tired, because I remember kind of being confused by certain things and kind of feeling like I'm not really getting it, but I really think it's intriguing. And I watched it last night with my husband, and so he had never seen it, and he was totally confused by certain aspects. He's an engineer, so I think a lot of the concepts were kind of, I don't know, it just didn't ring with him, the idea of love transcending. I don't know, but I thought it was so beautifully done. And Mark, your description, and Trina, your meditation, the perfect. I mean, more people should see art like this, because it really lays it out what we're dealing with, and how we can pull ourselves, or we can be pulled from one stage to the next, or just to have our heart lead us. Thank you.
Sage, do you have anything to add?
I'll just add what made me think of what you guys were talking about was the event horizon. In that it seems like the complexity of our minds is such that it almost, we're looking for answers of what is coming, what is emergent, to almost foretell the future. And this idea of the event horizon, which you can't see, intrigued me. Because it's always before us. It's always before humanity. Probably since we got cognition, was it 70, 80,000 years ago, of the simplest task, what we did is store food somewhere and then come back and get it. Well, now the world is so complex and our minds mirror that complexity, and the event horizon, I think we're all looking perhaps what is coming, what is emergent, and what will get us there. But we're never at the event horizon, and it's not possible. And what I like what this film did is it bent reality as using Einstein's theory of relativity as the framework of that, to use the black hole to escape our predicament, to look into the event horizon, which happened. He was able to touch that when he went into the 5-dimensional field, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was able to cross to the other side, which is our yearning also to know what comes after death. So these are all the things that I'm contemplating as you all speak.
Beautiful. Yeah, really.
And
That's
this
great.
is, how did this compare to the first time you saw the film, Sasha?
Well, I've had a personal, I would say I've had a personal transformation over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that I think I've realized my own intellect brought me to an end, and I'm slowly removing that veil of, doing my best to slowly remove the veil of my own intellect, because I dismissed the film as intellectualized, and I felt that I saw it for the first time. So yesterday I saw it really for the first time, and I thought it was a moment for myself, because of what I went through personally, which is, it's like two different things, which reminds me again of perception, and now I'm perceiving things in a different way, meaning people speak from their perception and perception only. And then I reread Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, and this is what he talks about. Objects don't exist in themselves. They must be, we must have cognition first to, it's us that perceives the object and makes value out of it. So I just saw the film in a different way, and I thought it was, Nolan put together something that was pretty extraordinary, to take concepts of relativity, black holes, and to make an emotional film out of it that makes you look at reality in a different way. He really pulled off something, to me, extraordinary, which made me think, I looked him up, like, okay, where's this guy coming from? Because I was like, where's this mind? What has he been trained in? Because obviously he's at a perceptive level to make the film.
Yeah, well, Christopher Nolan, in my opinion, is one of the most advanced filmmakers we have right now in terms of the integral structure of consciousness. He's pretty much, almost every film he makes is exploring the further reaches of perception and consciousness. Inception, was exploring, multiple stages of our inner world and merging them together. It just, so he's really kind of taking cinema to these levels. So he's operating at what we call high integral or teal structure of consciousness. And he may not even know anything about integral theory, because that doesn't matter, because integral theory is really just a mapping of a stage of development that's natural. So, yeah. So he's out there.
Worth noting too that his brother is Jonathan Nolan, who's the creator of Westworld, which is another very kind of sophisticated.
Yeah, but both.
Thing.
Yeah,
so the two of them are operating at this kind of really high level.
I just want to say that I've watched all the movies we've watched, and I've been relaxed, and I thought, society will evolve. It's no problem. But I watched this one with anxiety and tension, that I was going, oh God, they need to get this now, due to what we're going through. So that was my feedback.
Yeah, beautiful.
The time is now.
The film gave you anxiety.
Well, for me too, watching it, it's like seeing them wearing the face masks.
Yeah.
Right? Having to be isolated. All those things had much different resonance for me this time around than when I saw it when it came out. So there was a lot of kind of interesting kind of subtle triggers for me that connected it for this moment.
Right.
And that's one of the beautiful things about film, and the power of film is watching a film at different stages of your life personally has a profound impact, like Sage was talking about, or Sasha. And what you're talking about, Michael, is also what we're talking about now is it's not just our own personal trajectory, but our collective cultural and social field can change how we're seeing a film and its impact on us. And the
And I've
beauty of
experienced
a
it in
great
real
work,
time.
the beauty of a great work is that in each age of the individual and the collective, it has a evolving resonance.
Right. Well, I was a punk drummer, so I'm used to saying, let's get on with it. So I want people to get enlightened, God damn it.
Wake up.
Yeah, I want to scream it from the rooftops.
Exactly.
Well, what's
So,
also very interesting to me is how he's portraying how a lot of humanity is regressing and going into denial
Yeah.
while everything's falling apart, which is also very, very resonant to our present reality. So there is a lot of people still in denial, still not very afraid and regressing into lower structures.
well, I think one sort of unsung hero, if you can look at it that way, is the Michael Caine character, because he didn't have the answer, but he also felt like, well, if I tell everyone I don't have the answer, then what are these people going to, they're going to be counting the minutes until they suffocate. So in some ways, yes, it was cruel to not say you're not going to see your family again for a few, but what was that sacrifice, him holding that information for all those years? How did it actually serve the greater humanity that was living? It gave them hope, right? Instead of so I thought that conflict within him and that choice was extraordinary, really.
Very good point. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really a profound kind of conflict that he put in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There's one line that I would love to sort of get some impressions on from the group here. This is when Matthew McConaughey is with, so Cooper is with Murph in saying goodbye, and he says, "Once you are a parent, you are the ghost of your children's future."
Wow.
And that I thought was very profound, having just lost both my parents. And also as a parent of my own kids, children, understanding that he needed to have purpose and a life of his own instead of being her ghost while he was still living, right? That you could see and understand. She wouldn't understand it, but as an adult who has children, you go, I get it. You're still a human being. You're more than just a parent. Does that anyone else have something to add about that line, that scene?
Well, I'm not a parent, but just real quick, I would say that, it's as a child, when I lost my parents, it was, I realized that, when I went away to college, it was kind of like that empty nest that I left them with. There was this kind of, for me, they became ghosts in a way. They were in my memory. I would talk to them occasionally, but it was like I was going off on my own, and they did become like ghosts. So that line is resonant, I think, for all of us as a child as well. We can feel that. And I think it's very profound.
Yes. Anyone else have lines or scenes that really impacted them to discuss?
Yes, Lynn? You have to unmute yourself.
I'm sorry to turn my screen off. I may have to do it one more time. I've got a family thing I'm dealing with right now, actually. I was touched by the scene where the father goes in with, Cooper goes in with Murph to the school conference, and the school officials were talking about the, you know, the kind of the, what was it? It was the myth of having, they turned going to the moon into a myth.
That the moon landing was a propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I loved that he put that in there, because there are a lot of people out there who think that. I mean, it was like such a witty way, not or profound way to show what kind of forces of different kinds of minds that we're dealing with, trying to get people on the same page. I mean, it's just, what a project.
Profound.
Yeah.
And his response too was so great. You know, I think I'll take her to that.
Yeah. So I'm so interested in hearing that Christopher Nolan doesn't have a background in integral theory, because I mean, where does he come up with these ideas? Have you ever read anything, Mark, about his, like, what does he read?
Right, we need his reading list.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting in doing my research on how integral is reflected in films, it's like most of the integral filmmakers don't know anything about integral theory.
So interesting.
But what the point is that what integral theory it really is basically Ken Wilber is trying to map the integral stage of development and give us a theoretical framework for us to study so we could achieve it. But it's really this naturally evolving thing that was observed way back by Gene Gebser.
Yeah.
He started observing it in the 30s and 40s, and maybe even earlier, I think late 20s. And he saw how cultures reflected these different worldview structures. And he's the first one who called it integral. But for example, back in the 20s, there was this woman avant-garde filmmaker in France called, her name was Germaine Dulac. In the 1920s, she was considered the mother of the French avant-garde. She's also considered one of the first feminist filmmakers.
Wow.
And she created the first integral film in 1928 that has a climax with 4 quadrants.
Wow.
What's the name of the film?
Yeah.
The Seashell and the Clergyman. It gets even wilder. Her approach to filmmaking, she called it integral cinema in the 1920s.
Is that film available? Is that something that
It's on
YouTube, for free
on YouTube.
online at YouTube.
Oh my gosh.
It's very wild, very avant-garde, very abstract. It's really out there. But I analyzed it, and it is beautifully, powerfully integral. And I have an article online where I break it down that I could put in our notes afterwards on our website here.
On the chat.
For the group.
Well, and I will say that in my Zen practice, which is very integrally informed, there's a lot of tension around the issue of love. Like, what function does love play in, kind of, they're very worried about, some of the teachers they seem to be pushing against love, and kind of having women bring in the kind of the woman's point of view on what's most important can seem to threaten some of them. And, you know, I keep thinking, well, you know, if we're transcending and including, then isn't love what is most likely going to be the most necessary thing to move, you know? So this movie is so good about that, that's the thing that can transcend everything.
That's the fundamental, I mean,
It says that
I think a lot of spiritual teachers or religious traditions have kind of, they're not really looking at love in terms of it's as a force. They're looking at the ideas maybe of romantic love or sexual love. You know, it's like they have all the, I mean, but the constructs around love are constructs.
Yeah.
Love is beyond these constructs in many ways because it's all these different forms. I mean, parent to child, friends have, I mean, it's have all these variations, but there's also Evelyn Underhill, who did a cross-cultural, cross-tradition study of mysticism. She talks about that there is a fundamental kind of yearning and fear across all traditions, and that is we yearn for union in all forms, union with the divine, union with another. There's this drive towards union, and the driving force of that is love itself.
Yes.
But we're terrified of it at the same time because we're afraid of losing our separateness.
Yes, yes.
And there's a kind of primal fear in there. And so, I mean, even the advanced people on the advanced spiritual paths, you know, have this kind of struggle.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. One of my favorite lines is from the film, love is perceiving beyond dimensions of time and space. It is perceiving, experiencing beyond time and space. So powerful.
A great example of the limits of our constructs of love is, I don't know if everyone has kind of seen the early Democratic debates with Marianne Williamson.
Yes.
Was she, I mean, she was talking about that the only way to beat the hate that Trumpism has ignited is with love. And you could see, if you watched all the pundits afterwards, they did not know what to do with that. Because they were basically looking at, well, you can't hug everybody. Their idea of love was, you know, hugging everybody, you know, or forgiving and everything's okay, you know. And like one, I forgot who it was. I think it was Anderson Cooper, who asked Williamson about this afterwards. And she was beautifully, I think, articulate here when she was saying, sometimes love is saying no. It's like when you have a loved one who's addicted, who is, you know, being self-destructive. Sometimes love is intervention. It's saying no,
boundaries.
you can't be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, it's not, you know, love is what drives you. And she said, Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, all of that was powered by love. You know, love can be fierce. It's not, our idea of lovey-doveyness is not all of what love is.
Yeah.
And there's that great scene where Cooper lets himself, you know, he leaves himself behind so Anne Hathaway can go and continue. That was a powerful moment of love for her and all of mankind.
Yes.
You know, and self-sacrificing. But it was also a beautiful thing, having to leave something behind.
That was his moment, I think.
Yeah.
That was his big transition moment. I mean, it happened in stages. Like, for example, when he lost all that time and he came back to the ship, and all of the videos of his kids,
That was heart-wrenching. It was so hard.
But so beautiful, his performance. I mean, you could just see
so beautiful.
That shattering of inside of him, that heartbreak. That prepared him, and so by the time he had that choice, to make, it was like he had extended his love beyond his children to all of humanity, and even his care for her. He at that moment, he was in the gravity of love. He was feeling that universal love of the collective self, which is that is where the purest form of love is, at least that we can touch while we're still in form, is love for our collective beingness. And that love has power to, enter black holes and transcend time and space, and
That's right. Power to enter black holes. That's right. That's exactly right.
I feel like Jonathan wants to say something.
As we've been having this discussion, I've actually been thinking about lines of development, which is sort of an interesting frame within integral theory and other meta theories, that we have different lines. And a lot of people think that love is a line of development, but actually love sort of permeates all the lines. So your emotional line, if you have a place of love, you're going to have a healthier emotional development. But that's also true of the cognitive line and all these other lines, that as you behave within them, if you have a healthy relationship to love, those are all going to develop better in a way. So when you're talking about your religious teacher, Lynn was talking about some of the teachings, all these people are still coming within a frame that's a 20th century frame, and all these other frames that they might not even know about. So every tradition is still coming through a frame of the present, and that frame is going to be infected by and inflected by how the society holds love. And as you said, when Marianne starts talking about how we should come from a place of love, people are like, oh, she must be a hippie. It's the only frame they have for, that's, talk about
That's right.
political reasons why love is suppressed in the culture,
Exactly.
Tends to be in control, command and control cultures,
Well, because
business,
the powers that be,
too.
even if it's unconscious, they know that love is way too powerful to unleash, because it's gonna, it'll sweep them away too.
Yeah, that's right. Same in business environments as well. Even at the company that I worked for previously, I had this conversation with one of my colleagues, how it was a fear-based culture as a business, and how the opposite of this is love. How do you have a love-based business culture? Yeah. What does that look like? How do you have a love-based political structure?
And
right?
Those conversations are hard to have at a lot of companies. Like, say, hey, this is a fear-based company. It's like, I don't even know what you mean by that.
Right, exactly. That's exactly what happened when I said
top-down
that.
authoritarian American company. I mean, I don't even understand. People just don't see it.
Yeah. Well, I think also, and I think right now though too, a lot of that is shifting. Like we got these movements now, holarchy, and reinventing organizations which are applying integral theory to all this, and all of those are rooted in a more loving field. Theory U, out of MIT even, is all about a loving field brought into business. So it's coming, and we're at this inflection point. For example, yes. I think a powerful thing going on for us right now that I don't think we realize is that we're experiencing a profound love paradox viscerally, calling us to isolate ourselves from each other to protect the collective. So it's an act of separateness, but for an intention to protect the whole.
That's right.
And there's a very kind of powerful archetypal paradox happening there that is potentially transformative. And I think because of the transition we're going through, we're going to see a lot more of that kind of coming up for us. And I think,
Oh,
you know, we
absolutely.
could like feel into that and go, okay, man, here's another one of those calling waves, you know? And like, you know, it's like you could choose to hold isolation as like, oh man, you know, what am I going to do? And this and that, or, you know, it's like, you know, it's not fair and all, you know, all this kind of, you know, all of this stuff. But if you kind of hold that I am doing this for my loved ones, I'm doing this for the people I care about, I'm doing this for
For
everybody.
people I don't even know, to save their lives, you know?
You are committing a heroic act.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when we do something out of love and we have the conscious intention about that, and it's like, I'm doing this out of love, there is this, you could feel the power in your body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the other way of looking at it. Instead of being a victim, being the hero, right? Being the hero in your decisions and in your situations. What gives me such hope is when we're talking about even just the construct of a business, that you know, having kind of one school of business, having been, you know, mentored in that, having this younger generation of male and female who they're choosing purpose, they're choosing love and appreciation over title, salary, you know, position. Sasha, can you mute yourself? Thank you. So it's just so beautiful to see they're taking a stand in ways that, you know, those of my generation and earlier, like you said, they don't understand that, you know, this is a fear-based culture. But this younger generation is demanding, you know, no, if you want my talent and you want, you know, me to be a part of your organization, this is what is going to keep me, you know. I've had that repeatedly at Conscious Good, and it's been beautiful to witness.
I'll tell you this, what we're seeing in our research is, and others are reporting this same thing. I was just listening to a podcast with actually a transmedia producer who works with marketing and all this stuff, and they're seeing the same thing. Basically, this new generation Z, I guess we're calling them now, this is a very different species. These kids grew up on the internet and on smartphones. They have friends all over the world, cross-culturals. I mean, they do not have the perceptual boundaries that we have. And they have a way of processing information and working together that we can't even begin to grok. I mean, if you ever watch these kids work together playing, what's that game, Minecraft, you'll get, you know, like 20 kids as a team around the world that are creating a civilization inside of Minecraft. And they will work in this field of complexity, multitasking, and almost like they could read each other's minds. It looks like from the outside. They are very adept at what's called collective intelligence making. So there's this
so much
whole,
hope.
they're, you know, and they're being exposed to all the stages of development at the same time. No generation of humanity has been exposed to all of human knowledge and all the stages and structures of development all at once. And these kids are on devices that promote integration. So a smartphone is an integral technology. And what that means is that it's a device that integrates previous separate devices. We used to have a phone, a camera, a sound recorder. All of these things were separate. Now we have this little device we call a smartphone, but it's basically, you know, the devices that are on our smartphone used to fill a whole room of different objects. And these devices integrate those and ping pong each other. I could shoot a shot on my smartphone, walking outside, come in the house, and it's on all my screens, on all my computers, and I could process it with all my different devices, and I could add text, and I could do, I could send it, and, it's like all of this stuff. The boundaries between function and form is being integrated and transcended. And it affects how we think, because our brains are constantly laying down new neural pathways. And any kind of repeated activity that we do for an extended period, like anywhere between 30 to 50 days, and I think the sweet spot is like 40, 45 days, our brain will create neural superhighways for that activity. And literally the structure of our brain changes so that we can perceive and operate in these new ways. So these devices are training them at a very young age when the brain is developing. So this is way beyond anything we've ever seen. And I think there's great hope here. So,
Mark, your question for you, or for everyone. I recently hooked on to blockchain and Bitcoin, and I've used it as a way to study consciousness, my own consciousness and others' consciousness, because I find it to be what's happening with cryptocurrency completely fascinating. Unregulated, undecentralized, but yet not a tangible asset, because, as we all know, we're off the gold standard. So gold, the tangible asset, no longer backs currency. So they're just printing money, which is a joke because they're just creating paper and saying it's worth something. It's not. But then we have cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology on which it's built as a way to look at how our minds are working now, how our networks are working, because it's fascinating. It's a group effort online now, basically. I don't know if you guys know much about blockchain, but there's a group effort in mining the currency, but it's all through computer networks, which reflect the mind. And I think this is fascinating. And then, so that's a point of conversation. And I want to jump to then, it seems as if formalized education is lagging way behind. I look at what my kids are studying, and my daughter keeps saying, why are we studying this? She's 16. I was in that same position. The teachers couldn't tell me why, besides we got to get this to get to college. I said, well, that's not an answer. That's not a foundational answer. That's something someone told you. That's being a donkey. You can just, it's just repeating old information. So maybe can someone discuss the nexus of everything that's happening, but particularly like if we look at this blockchain technology and then education, there's so much happening.
All right, now you're hitting on the evolutionary transition right in the bullseye. All right, okay. What we're going through now. All right, so what we have here is our social systems are still operating at the rational industrial stage of development. Our school system is a rational industrial holdover. It's, it's factory education that was created to produce factory workers. The bell rings every hour, it's like, regurgitating information. This is all rational and industrial. At the same time, our technologies have gone past that. The internet is pluralistic technology, but our systems, our currency is still rational and industrial, but the blockchain and also things going up beyond the blockchain like holochain are exploring what a pluralistic social structure should look like. So in a rational industrial society, which is nation-centric, so the nation-state system is rooted in this. You have, this basic kind of logic, A plus B plus C and all that, and a centralized authority and hierarchy. Even our corporations still actually have some holdovers even to the feudal system, in a way. So you've got this rational industrial structure but our technologies, our internet has been taking us into the pluralistic across the planet globally. But we have a global financial system that is taking rational industrial structures and trying to make it global. And that's why we're having so much trouble, because it doesn't work. So movements like blockchain are efforts to evolve to our next level for taking our economic system into the pluralistic stage, which is a key element is decentralization, non-hierarchical, and enmeshed, so that you have separateness, but it's enmeshed and intertwined. And so that's pluralism that's actually being quantified into form. So that is part of the movement, and that is the shift in consciousness that you're observing. Now, Holochain is taking that to the integral stage. So it's taking the blockchain and trying to take it more into the integral, which is creating a whole new internet that is decentralized itself and regenerative and integrative in multiple forms. Now, the educational system is a major, major problem. Because of that, it's still in the rational industrial. Our kids, though, like I said, they're growing up on smartphones and the internet. They are way beyond the teachers. They're way beyond this system. They're actually 2 stages ahead of the educational system in the Western world, except for the Nordic countries. That's different. They're further along structurally.
They're 1 stage behind.
Huh? They're only 1 stage behind. Yeah, they're only 1 stage behind. We're 2 stages behind educationally, but the crux of the matter is our political system is in a civil war state between 3 structures. And one of those structures, the traditional mythic, is even farther behind the rational industrial. So we've got advanced technologies coming online very soon that are beyond integral, that we will not be able to handle. For example, there's a technology called deep fake, which is a video technology where they can basically take any person and make them say or do anything as if it's real. So I could take, I could take footage of Donald Trump or Barack Obama or anybody online and make them say or do anything, and it looks real. So if we think we're in the post-truth age now, within the next couple of years, that's way beyond. So that's a transcendent, that's a what we call a transpersonal technology. So what we've got is we've got basically the leading edge of our technology is 4 to 5 stages ahead of the lowest structure that has power to make decisions in our collective field.
Okay, that is so scary, Mark. How do we?
Can you
Oh.
repeat that? Can you repeat that,
All right.
Mark? What you just said?
The leading edge of our technologies is 4 to 5 stages ahead of the lowest structure of consciousness that has power to make decisions in our collective field.
Well, that's the point, which is reflected in chaos.
That is why we are at a civilization-wide crisis.
I get it. Yeah.
It is unparalleled in human history.
Okay, so Mark, where's the hope? We got 4 minutes. Anyone?
All right, the hope is in these kids.
Note.
The hope is in these kids, but the hope is also there's organizations and people all over the world working on the next thing. They're trying to figure out the next thing. Buckminster Fuller said you can't really change a dying system. You could fight it all you want. It's not going to change anything. You have to create a new way that is so much better that people will just go to it because, it's better. So there are literally thousands of people across the planet working around the clock on that. From people working from the folks at Holochain to the Theory U folks to all of these experimental communities all over the planet that are trying to experiment with new ways of collective intelligence. Jonathan and I right now are working with Campus Coaval, which is trying to create a collective intelligence form of education and helping to train activists around the world in this form. There's also this movement of scientists, systems theorists, evolutionary biologists, all of these people coming together on what they're calling the Game B.
Game B or Plan B?
Game B.
Game B.
Game B. So what this is, and we're working with them now too to help them to create some media. So Game B, the idea is that our current civilization is operating at a Game A paradigm. So our current system as it is Game A. What would Game B have to be in order for us to survive and thrive? And this is a huge experiment. There's a wiki for it that's exploring it. It's totally decentralized. There's folks all over the planet, scientists, this and that, theorists, all over the world that are contributing. So there's a lot of hope, but it's a race against time. Both because of the crises that we've created, like the climate crisis, which global warming is not just global warming. It's kind of, it is, I hate to say this, but it's like a lot of liberals don't grok that global warming is nothing. It's only a part of a huge environmental crisis. We have species dying off at a rate that is unparalleled in history. I mean, there's like every element, every component of our ecosystem is in crisis. Not just the warming, it's all happening at once. So, I mean, it's like, and from an evolutionary perspective, civilizations go into crisis in various ways. One is the depletion of a civilization's resources. a shift in the environment, inequality, right? We actually have all of the elements for a civilization crisis happening at once.
Yeah, and we're experiencing it.
But we also have the greatest potential, but it's not easy and it's not a sure thing. But we have tools like the internet and smartphones. We've never had that before. We have these kids. We have these great minds sharing because of this internet, working together across the planet in real time. So we have a lot of tools that we never had before.
That's hopeful.
But it's also the biggest leap we've had to make. And to wrap it up, and the key is we gotta harness that love. We have to wake up and say, all right, man, this is it. This is, the house is on fire. Our kids and everyone's kids and everyone is in trouble. I love it, Michael. And all hands on deck, you know. If we come from that and tap into that passion and that love, that's what required for us to make that leap.
And that's what this film that we've been talking about is illustrates for us, right? It really just viscerally gives us that experience and that example of how it can be done. Well, I have to wrap up. I want to thank everyone who's welcome to stay on for as long as possible. But I need to go on to another Zoom call, if you can believe it. So thank you everyone for participating this week, this month, and look forward to seeing you again next month. If not
one more thing, happy anniversary to our group. 1 year this month.
Oh, that's so great. Yay for us. Fabulous. Happy anniversary, Mark, Jonathan. Thanks everyone. It's great. It's great
performing
being with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.